Okay, so next time you go to a party, I got a party trick that I think will make you pretty popular. So the first thing that you want to do is you basically want to have a thumbs up shape. Make sure all 4 fingernails are kind of tucked into like this little like meaty part of your palm. It's pretty important. So once they're all like tucked in like that, you've got your thumb straight up. What you want to do is stick your tongue right under the like top, your 2 front teeth there, this crease that's in your thumb. You basically want to put that right there. And then all you want to do is basically just blow. What is going on, guys? So today we are back, and this is a kind of a different type of video because these kind of updates are few and far between, but now that we have one, I would like to take the opportunity to do a little bit of a informational type video to kind of go over some of the changes that are happening in Pokemon Go. So the first big thing that most people are probably going to want to hear about is we do have 2 new moves added into the game. We do have Charm and Skull Bash, which is pretty interesting because this is the first time we've ever had a fairy fast type move. Yes, you heard correct. Charm is a fairy type fast move, and whew, it's got some interesting numbers. So let's actually go over these here. So Charm actually is a 2 energy per turn, but a 5.33 damage per turn before stab. If the Pokemon that you have it on does get a stab benefit, it does bump up to a whopping 6.4 damage per turn. So just to put that into perspective, Razor Leaf, which is considered like the bee's knees when it comes to just insane amounts of power in a fast move, Razor Leaf is the exact same energy per turn at 2 energy per turn, but it has just a smidge more damage per turn at 5.5. So it's basically almost saying that fairies just got Razor Leaf, which is insane to think about because that actually opens up so much for the fairies right now. It doesn't make fairies any faster per se, which I guess like I'm definitely more of a like, I like to just hit fast moves quicker rather than later. But I know there's use cases where things like Razor Leaf and now Charm will have a very huge implication. But they're not necessarily a faster typing because of Razor Leaf, but they are way more damage outputting than they were previously. With freaking Charm, this is freaking huge for the fairy types. Like, this is actually one of the biggest updates that I think fairies will ever get in Pokemon Go. This is pretty freaking huge. So, the possible Pokemon that can learn Charm as of today, as of July 9th, is going to be Raichu, Cantonian Raichu for whatever reason, Clefable, Wigglytuff, Wobbuffet, Granbull, Donphan, Gardevoir, Delcatty, Latias, Togekiss, and Gallade. So that's quite a bit. That's 11 different Pokemon that can actually learn Charm already off the bat, which is a pretty big pool of Pokemon already. Let's actually move on to our second move which got added, which is Skull Bash, which is actually a charge move. So Skull Bash here actually costs 75 energy to fire. It does 130 damage at a 1.73 damage per energy ratio. It is a normal type move, so if your Pokemon is normal typing and it gets that stab benefit, it does go up to 156 on the damage for a 2.08 on the damage per energy ratio. Now, the big thing about Skull Bash is not only is that a very respectable stat for all of those situations. Energy, I mean 75 is a little steep, but that's not out of the world. 130 damage is pretty respectable for 75 energy, and 1.73 is fairly average. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that move already. But then on top of that, Skull Bash actually increases the defense stat of the user 100% of the time. So at the moment, I'm not sure if it's 1 stage or if it's going to be 2 stages. I would assume it's only going to be 1 stage based on the way that it's worded, especially in the Pokemon Go blog and in all of the infographics that I've seen. I'm assuming 1 stage, which still ends up meaning that you get a 25% boost in your defense every time you use it. 100% of the time, whether it hits or don't. That's crazy. So if they shield it, you still get a defense boost. It's just insane. So the Pokemon that can actually learn this move today is going to be Blastoise, Cantonian Raichu, Lapras, Snorlax, and Rhyperior. Which that's pretty crazy. So I just out of that, just if they just gave us those two, that would be like mind-blowing. But they also added a ton of other stuff. But before we get to that, I do want to say Cantonian Raichu made it out so good today. A new fast move, a new charge move. Cantonian Raichu's on cloud 9 right now, like seriously. So getting into the move pool changes. So all of the moves that were changed today are move pool additions. There has not been any word on any legacy moves at the point. None of these moves have been added in place of another move. All of these are additional moves, which I have some thoughts on that, which we'll get to here in a second. So starting here at the top of our infographic, which I should have up here already, hopefully. So Alolan Raichu actually gets a hold of Grass Knot, which is okay. I mean, Grass Knot's a decent move in PvP, but it does help cover a little bit of the ground type that can end up giving Alolan Raichu some problems there. Not hugely meta relevant, not game breaking for the Jungle Cup, of course, but I mean, it's nice to say the least. It's nice that he has another move. Now, Vileplume actually gets a hold of Sludge Bomb out of this update, which is a decent addition. It is the only poison type charge move that Vileplume will have, which is okay. I mean, only rocking with Petal Blizzard, Solar Beam, and Moonblast. It does give it a little bit more of an option to be more of a poison type specialist, or just a generalist in some other situations. So Sludge Bomb is okay. That's a great addition, and the fact that we didn't have to trade any legacy moves for that, just fine. Next we have Hypno, which definitely gets the most moves out of this update with Ice Punch, Fire Punch, and Thunder Punch added to its move pool. And this is kind of the point where I feel like this is a problem. Hypno having all 3 elemental punches raises its entire move pool by so much that trying to get one of these specific moves is gonna be insanely difficult. And I hate that, because we have to freaking go out and raid even more just to get these charge TMs, to get the moves that we want, and it's not even close to a guarantee. With Hypno, what is there gonna be, like 2 legacy moves at this point, and you're basically gonna be running through 6? Is it 6? Is it 5 or 6? I don't know. Either way, you're gonna be freaking using charge TMs like crazy to try to get the move that you want, and if RNG isn't on your side, you literally are just going to sit there and waste charge TMs, which is so stupid. Niantic, you have to change this if you're going to do things like this. It's not fun for people. It's not a great experience. You're literally hindering the people's ability to get a move that they want or / need, and you're hoping to make an extra $1 or $2 off of some raid passes every now and then. Like, come on. Please rework TMs. It's been a problem, and this makes it even more of a problem. It's seriously bad for a player experience. The player experience using TMs is complete trash. Please do something. Please. Hypno getting these 3 elemental punches though is actually really interesting for its moveset. It does open up a ton of additional coverage for Hypno, whether it's up against flying types now, whether it's up against grass types now, whether it's up against more flying, whether this is water. I mean, you've got like way more coverage options out of Hypno, and I think Hypno is probably one of the biggest winners along with Cantonian Raichu today. Huge impact for Hypno here. Next, moving on to Electrode. Electrode does get Foul Play, which is interesting. I can't think of too many like crazy coverage options that it would really help up against the electric typing, because electric typing is really only weak to ground. And now we have a dark move. Okay. For what it's worth, Foul Play will be tied with Discharge for the fastest available charge move on our Electrode here, which could actually do something. It does make him a little bit more speedy, and it does give him, at worst, a neutral type move in some situations, or possibly a great move if he's ever featured in or stuck in a situation that calls for dark type moves. Electrode, that's nice. So Aerodactyl actually gets a hold of Rock Throw, which this time is actually a fast move, and that's okay. I mean, Aerodactyl having more rock type damage is fine, I guess. It's not really a huge Pokemon that everybody always uses. It's not super meta relevant when it's featured in any kind of cups or anything, but I mean, it's not gonna make anything legacy, so there's that benefit. Next, we have Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres. All three of the original legendary birds do get a hold of Ancient Power here, which is just fine. Ancient Power, of course, does have the possibility to buff yourself, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Those moves are fine and dandy. But each one of them also get another move in addition. So Articuno actually gets Ice Shard, which is a very respectable ice type fast move. Zapdos gets Drill Peck, which is okay. I mean, it's not super relevant, but it's nice, I guess. And then Moltres actually gets Wing Attack, which Wing Attack is kind of interesting because Wing Attack is the one that ends up having 3.5 energy per turn for 2.5 damage per turn. So 3.5 energy per turn is pretty respectable. That could help out Moltres in some areas, but none of these birds are really super relevant when it comes to themed cups anyways. Possibly in the Ultra League or possibly even in the Master League they could have a little bit better of a chance, but they're never really like super relevant inside of the cups themselves. So I don't foresee any of those really changing in the Sylph Arena cups until possibly we get Ultra League or something different rather than Great League. Sceptile, though, actually gets a hold of Dragon Claw, which is a pretty interesting one because Dragon Claw is a rather fast move here. So Dragon Claw coming in at only 35 energy to fire. It looks like tied with Leaf Blade, that will be a super freaking fast move to actually have on Sceptile. So if you're one of those firm believers in Frenzy Plant, if Frenzy Plant is your bread and butter, I mean, it has an insane damage payoff. It only costs 45 to fire. That's just fine if you want to run that, or if you want to run Leaf Blade. If you don't have the Frenzy Plant, it's a decent substitution. It's not quite as good, but it is a decent substitution. Now you actually have Dragon Claw. So if you wanted to run Frenzy Plant and you don't want to run Leaf Blade, just because it's faster, but it's still the same, like it's 2 grass types on Sceptile, which isn't that amazing. Now you have Dragon Claw, which in a lot of cases is probably going to end up doing neutral damage to a lot of things, or even better, it could actually hit a few things for super effective damage in possibly different cups. So I definitely think that Dragon Claw is a huge addition for Sceptile, definitely will help out quite a bit in speed, and it will kind of alleviate some of the problems that Sceptile has if it doesn't have Frenzy Plant. It won't fix those problems, but it'll definitely help alleviate some of those just a little bit. Next we actually have Aggron, which comes in with Smackdown. We all know that Smackdown is hugely impactful, especially in raids, but in PvP, it still does rather well, and things that always end up using it, like Tyranitar or Cranidos or things like that, they're always like super high CP, so they're not super relevant in terms of the Great League. So Sylph League Cups, here again, it's kind of the same story with the birds. It possibly isn't going to be as impactful in the Great League, but Smackdown is still an amazing move, and it's great that Aggron gets that without having to sacrifice any of its other moves to become Legacy. Claydol getting Mud Slap. Mud Slap's the worst of the two. Definitely want to see Mud Shot instead of Mud Slap on your Pokemon. I guess that's decent, the fact that Claydol actually has a ground type fast move that it can, you know, run around with, but I mean, Mud Slap is just kind of meh. It's not that amazing. Then we move on to Bronzong, which actually gets Bulldoze and Psyshock. So Psyshock is a pretty big one. It's a fairly decent Psychic type move. Bulldoze, unfortunately, isn't as good as Psyshock in its, you know, respectful area. It's just not amazing. Psyshock is definitely the better out of those two, but the fact that it does have some ground type coverage is okay now, and the fact that it gets Psyshock and it will get stabbed based off of that, holy cow, that's a great addition for Bronzong. Last but not least, we do have Electivire here, which does actually get a hold of Ice Punch, which is interesting. I mean, Ice Punch is going to do good up against grass, dragons, and flying. Like, it's not going to be like super helpful towards some of the things that he's already good at. Like flying types he's already pretty much got covered, but I would say like the dragons in the grass are really what's going to help out there, but we weren't like super scared of either of those either way. Possibly like if you want to be using Electivire up against Altaria, I guess, but Altaria is a really Great League centric Pokemon, and Electivire stats really try to push it towards the Ultra League a lot of times, so I don't know, it's just kind of a weird choice. Electivire could get some benefit off of it, especially up against the grass types, possibly in the Jungle Cup or even in a future cup, but other than that, I mean, it's okay. So with that huge update, not only did we get all of those moves added, but we also got a mechanic change inside of actual PvP battles. Now whenever you go to switch your Pokemon, the game will actually pause immediately. So your trainer will stick out their hand with a Pokeball, they'll retract the Pokemon that you currently have out, the trainer will actually sit there while you wait to throw out one of your 3 Pokemon. You do have the option to throw out the Pokemon that you just retracted, which I think could actually set up for some interesting bait and switches. Possibly if your opponent sees you retract a Pokemon, they're gonna go ahead and queue up that they want to switch as well. I'm not 100% sure if it'll work like that, but that would be really cool if it did. They've also stated that charge moves will be updated as well. So they talked about like swiping and tapping and like some other like different mechanic to it. And it says to visit Niantic's help page, but I literally scoured that help page and couldn't find anything updated. I literally couldn't find anything. If you guys find that, please put it in a comment below. I would love to see that so I can figure out what they're actually talking about. So that's a ton of content being updated today. That's a lot of stuff that's changed. I definitely think that the big winners are the Pokemon that get a hold of Charm today. Charm is an amazing move right off the bat with an insane damage output. If you guys are participating in the Jungle Cup, I highly, highly encourage you to go check out Wigglytuff. If you guys want to see that deep dive, please vote for it down below. I'm not gonna break protocol for it just because there was an update. If you guys wanna see it, if you drop it down in the comments, I will add it to the spreadsheet. So that is actually gonna be it for today, guys. Let the outro roll. Well, you've made it to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, if you do have any ideas for content, please drop them down in the comments below. I'll be happy to look at those for you guys. Of course, if you want to join my personal Discord, get to talking to some people that have a similar outlook as myself, definitely go down into the description, join that Discord there. If you want to become a Patreon, there is a link down in the description for that as well. My outlook on Patreon is I don't want to put anything behind a paywall. This is what I do. You guys get every bit of what I make, and I don't want to limit that to someone else just because they can't pay for something. I didn't think that was fair. If you want to be a Patreon, just know that you're literally doing it from the kindness of your heart, wanting to support me, and I appreciate that. You don't even understand how much. There are a couple of other options if you would like to join the community here on YouTube. It's very similar to a Twitch-like subscription where it's a dollar amount per month depending on where you live. And then that monthly fee basically gets funneled to me every month. And you do get a couple of special perks here on YouTube, like some badges and some emojis or whatever. Honestly, I think those are only for live streaming. So that may not be the way that most people want to go, but that's an option if you want to. Other than that, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, that link is actually going to be down in the description as well. And until our next video, guys, that should be it. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out. And until our next video, I will catch you then.